Hey, folks, good morning to you. This is Val. Sitting here this morning, my heart is palpitating. I am so excited for this interview. It's absolutely amazing what is about to transpire on this call today. We have an incredible gentleman. Many of you probably know him from all over the world, Mr. Larry Winget. And he's been on Fox News. He's been on the Dr. Phil show. I mean, this guy is, they say he's the Pitbull. I say he's the grizzly bear of personal development. I just spent quality time watching his videos, going through his reviews. This man is a beast, and what we're going to do today is we're going to find out a lot about Larry. For those of you that don't know who he is, you are in for the rude awakening. I love this man. I haven't had the privilege of meeting him in this lifetime, but I just told him I love him. I love everything about him. I love what he does. This guy is like a nuclear bomb ready to explode on the world and just wake everybody up. The living dead are about to be disrupted in a very big way. So Mr. Larry Winget, how are you, sir?
I am always good. I always say it's good to be Larry Winget.
And I can understand why you'd probably say that, too. I really appreciate that. You know, as I've been going through your website today, let's go back a few years, man. Let's go back a few years. As I've been going through your website, and I've been studying you and your body language and the way you posture and the way you communicate, brother, what happened to you, man? I mean, how did this all come about for you from the time you were a child? What caused you to just kind of, you know, become politically incorrect and challenge the establishment and challenge the way the world thinks? And, I mean, I really gravitate to you because you are something that I almost would like to be. I do it in my own style and my own way, but I just love the way you come out and do it. You've almost incorporated this biker image to you, this cowboy image to you, this guerrilla marketer, this you've amalgamated so many different personalities and traits into one human being. Where did this all come from? Did something happen in your childhood that caused you just to flip a switch and just go ballistic and wake up the world? What happened to you, man?
No, I was raised right as a child, and my parents taught me the importance of honesty and integrity and strong work ethic and keeping your word. And that's how I was raised, and that's what I believed. That's how I always was in business. I grew up dirt poor. Somebody made fun of me one time in the 8th grade when I was 13 years old for being poor, and I made a decision I wasn't going to be poor anymore. I was going to get rich, and I didn't know what that would look like or what it was going to take to happen, but I made a decision that was going to happen in my life, so I went out and worked my ass off because that was really the only skill that I realized I had. I could outwork everybody. So over the years, and no matter what job I had, I just outworked everybody. And I think that strong work ethic and that whatever was instilled in me through that being humiliated, embarrassed by growing up a poor kid, absolutely shaped the way I lived my life. It made me realize that I could change my circumstances, and if I could do it, anybody could do it. And it also made me very intolerant of all the people in the world that sit around on their ass and whine about their circumstances. If you don't like your life, get out there and change it. I did it. I can show you thousands of other people who have done it, and you can do it too. And so that's sort of been my approach. Now, I spent a good amount of time in the personal development world as a professional speaker, being your typical motivational guy. And I would say all the stuff that everybody else did. And I was very successful because I'm good at what I do. But it was so inauthentic for me that I went through a midlife crisis about 15 years ago, and I realized that I hated every single word that came out of my mouth because I didn't believe it. I don't believe that a positive attitude does you one damn bit of good at all. I don't believe all this stuff that people tell you in the and all these big motivational speakers, the ones everybody knows and heard of and read, those are my best buddies, but I think they're all liars. And so I just realized I needed to go out there and say what I truly felt and believed. And when I gave myself permission to do that, it was truly a transformational thing for me. I went on stage and a guy heckled me, and I turned on him and said, "You need to shut up, stop whining, and get a life." And the crowd leapt to their feet in a standing ovation, and I said, "That's a good line." I think I'll hang on to that line. And I wrote a #1 bestseller with that as the title, Shut Up, Stop Whining, and Get a Life. But giving myself permission to say what I believed also was such a thing in the industry because there wasn't anybody out there who was willing to really go on stage and challenge all the motivational speakers, all the traditional business knowledge, and really take it head on. I was the one guy, and I was very fortunate. Came along at a time where I was the one guy that was willing to contradict all of that traditional thinking, and it's worked out well for me.
I love it, man. You know, I just can't tell you what's good. I got goosebumps on my skin, and that normally doesn't happen because I can relate to you. I feel it. And I love what you said. You gave yourself permission. That was the breakthrough. That was a turning point when you gave yourself permission. And I really appreciate the fact that you said that it's a bunch of lies because, Larry, I've been telling people for years the power of positive thinking is a waste of time. Goal setting. I still don't understand goal setting. In the Bible, Jesus never taught goal setting. Any of the great spiritual teachers, they would laugh at goal setting today. And I like what you said here. You said, do what you said you would do when you said you would do it the way you said you would do it. End of story.
That's my one overriding principle for both life and business because I've discovered that doing what you said you would do when you said you would do it the way you said you would do it, that's all anybody ever wants from us. That's all your kids want from you as a parent. That's all your wife wants from you as a husband. That's all your employer wants. That's all your employees want. That's all your customers want from you. Just do what you said you would do when you said you would do it the way you said you would do it.
What an incredible model. So this was about 15 years ago that you kind of went through the transformation and decided to break the cage open and go loose on everybody, hey?
Yeah, about 15 years ago, and it absolutely transformed my business as well as my life. I threw away all my suits and ties. I put my earrings back in. I used to take my earrings out before I went on stage because I actually at that point cared what people thought. And when I stopped that and put on the cowboy shirts, put the cowboy boots on, and put the earrings in and my 8 rings on 10 of my fingers and all the bracelets and all that stuff and went on and was willing to be authentic. See, I've discovered that people don't believe what you have to say. They don't actually even listen to what you have to say. But they will always listen to see if you believe what you have to say. And people will pay a premium for authenticity.
Amen to that. You're absolutely correct. And I got to tell you, everything you're saying is absolutely true because I can see it. I can see it right here, your website. Everything you're saying, you're wearing the glasses, you got the cowboy shirt on. You don't give a damn what people think. And, my hat's off to you for doing that. And I'm just looking at your book covers right now. I mean, you're saying grow a pair of this, and you're saying shut up and stop whining, get a life. And, it's called work for a reason, and people are idiots. And I can prove it. I mean, everything you're saying is you know what, Larry, I honestly believe this. I think there's a lot of great speakers out there, my friend, that would really love to do what you did, but I think they're too scared to do it.
Oh, I know them all by name. Believe me. I hear from them all the time. They wish they had a pair and would have been willing to go on stage and actually said what they believed instead of giving the audience a speech. And I have people all the time when they're wanting to hire me as a speaker say, this is what we'd like for you to say. This is what we need said from the stage. I said, if that's what you want to have said, go say it yourself. You didn't hire me to give your speech for you. I'm not doing that. This is what I say. I don't change what I say. And if you're uncomfortable with that, go hire somebody else who will be your mouthpiece for you. Somebody asked me what I did the other day. I said, I go on stage and say what the CEO wished he had the balls to say, but his HR department won't let him say.
That's fabulous, man. That is absolutely fabulous. So what was the breakthrough for you? What was happening when that? Do you just remember that whole transformation 15 years ago? I mean, were you were on the verge of a nervous breakdown or something? What was going on? Really, what caused you to snap?
I wasn't a nervous breakdown. I just reached this point in my life where I couldn't stand myself. I hated every word that came out of my mouth. It moved over into all areas of my life. It caused problems with my wife. I got to the point I couldn't stand her. I couldn't stand the people who worked for me, my manager. I hated every audience I stood in front of. And I went into my wife and my manager on the same day and said, I'm out. Don't call me. I'll call you if I ever decide to come back. And I got in my car and left. I was living in Oklahoma at the time. Got in my car and drove to the desert of Arizona, parked myself in a hotel with a fine bottle of scotch, a big box of cigars, a stack of books, and some good music, and sat and tried to figure out who I was. And at that point, I was watching TV one evening. I watched an interview with Dennis Miller. And in the interview, Dennis Miller said that when he really became successful, when he quit being that sketch comedian that we all knew him as on Saturday Night Live and so forth, was when he realized that most comedians go on stage to endear themselves to the audience. And so the audience will like them. I think that's what speakers do. They go on stage so everybody will like them, so it will feed their ego. And he said, what I realized about myself is I'm not very endearing, so I gave it up. And the instant he said that, a light went on inside my brain and in my soul, and I decided I wasn't very endearing, and I would give it up. And instantly, I picked up the phone, called my wife, and said, if you'll still have me, I want this to work. I called my manager and said, our business will look different. But I'm going to be who I am, and I'm going to say what I want to say. And that's when I told you. The next time I went on stage, a guy heckled me, and I told him, shut up, stop whining, and get a life. And everything about what I did changed, because I was empowered to go. If it didn't work, I didn't care. I'd go back and do something else. There's lots of ways to make a living, lots of ways to get rich, and I'm good at all of them. But I was going to go on stage and be absolutely authentic and say what I believed, and if they didn't like it, fine, and if they did like it, that would be even better. What I discovered is I am not right for everybody. The problem with most people who do anything in the public eye, anybody who's going on stage, recording an album, doing anything, is they want the approval of everyone. And that is impossible if you're going to take a stand. You can take a stand on anything in this world. Jesus took a stand for loving people, and they killed him for it. So I don't care what you're going to take a stand for. You will have enemies. I don't believe that you can have rabid fans without having rabid enemies. I am okay with that. Most people aren't, and that's why they never succeed. That's why they never grow a pair. That's why they're never really happy or find self-fulfillment, because they're not willing to have people dislike them.
Fabulous point, man. Fabulous point. And that's so true in every industry. You know, in the industry I'm in network marketing, the home-based business community, people are always trying to be politically correct. You know, they're trying to make everything, you know, hunky-dory and make everyone happy. And people just need to understand you can't do it. It's impossible. That's an impossible task.
My post today on Facebook, and I have a very interactive Facebook page. I would encourage everybody listening to go to Larry Winget fan page on Facebook. But my post today says that one of the most castrating effects in our society is political correctness, and it absolutely is. We are trying to live our lives so no one will ever be offended, no one will ever disagree with us, so we can live in a life of perfect safety, of never getting our feelings hurt. That's what bullying is about. We've created a society where if anyone says anything to you about yourself, your looks, your opinion, that's bullying. No, that's a stupid person criticizing you for something they have no right to say, and if you'll stop being a victim, you won't have a bully. So it's absolutely destroying our society, entitlement and political correctness.
Love it, man. Love it, man. Let me just go back to your wife for a second. Not a personal question, but how did she like the transformation? I mean, there was an older you. There was the Larry she married and she knew this side of you. I gather she knew this side of you prior to you making everyone happy.
Oh, she knew that's who I was. We met when I worked for AT&T. I was her boss's boss at the time when we first met, and that's how I always was in business.
Right on.
But when you go on stage and you need the approval of other people to make a living, you have a tendency to compromise yourself. And I had compromised. I was the same guy at home. I was outspoken and opinionated and didn't give a damn what anybody thought. But when I went on stage, I had compromised, and I was saying things that I knew people would buy because I needed to make a living. So I did say the popular things, all the things that motivational speakers say, and I was good at saying it because I'm good at my craft. But she was a little shocked. I think what she was most concerned about was, could I make a living being the contrarian that I really am. And again, what I discovered is that people are so willing to pay a premium price for authenticity, whether they agree with it or not. And that's what she wanted to know. Would that happen? And I proved that it can happen.
Oh, yeah, there's a big marketplace for what you're doing, man. I mean, there's so many people out there that would be giving standing ovations all day long for coming out and doing what you're doing. Now, when you started doing television, because obviously, I mean, you're internationally famous. I mean, you're probably you're booked for television and everything, radio. God only knows what else you're booked for. Were you doing these television shows when you were a motivational speaker, when you were just the nice guy, when you were just the nice Larry instead of, being the real authentic Larry, or did the authentic side come out? How did that work, man?
No, I started doing television when I wrote the book, Shut Up, Stop Whining, and Get a Life, and immediately went to #1 on the bestseller list.
Right on.
Because, when you're going through a bookstore and all the books are the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and See You at the Top and on and on and on, all these happy titles, and suddenly here's the cover of a book with a guy with sunglasses on with way too many rings on his fingers and bracelets and earrings, dressed all in black, pointing his finger in your face saying, shut up, stop pointing, get a life. That book stood out. And while that book was at number 1, A&E, they had a new television show, and they happened to be looking for a host for that show, somebody with attitude. And they were walking through an airport, the producer was, and saw that book cover. And he said, look at this guy. He's got an attitude. He's got a look. Let's do a screen test. And they called me and flew out to my house, did a screen test at my house, and instantly hired me to do the show.
Amazing.
And then with that kind of exposure, I started getting picked up to do a lot of other stuff. I did 2 PBS specials, 2 specials for CNBC called A Millionaire Inside. I became the Today Show, MSNBC, CNBC, and then I became a regular on Fox News.
That's amazing, all because of that one transformation. Hey, it's amazing how that one transformation in your life can be the golden ticket.
It's that willing to be authentic that really makes the difference. And it's sort of wrapped up in everything we've talked about here. We have very few people who are truly willing to be authentic. Yeah,
and that's that seems to be the norm out there in the motivational, self-help speaking. But, the way you do it, you can actually help people. I was going through some of your videos where we're talking about, finances and marriage counseling and stuff like that. A lot of marriage counselors are, very gentle and very soft, and you're kind of like a thunderstorm. Do you want to give us a little bit of background on that, like just even with marriage counseling or family problems, or maybe a son's addicted to drugs and alcohol, and you kind of want to give them the rude awakening? You're not your average soft-spoken, reverend in a church type of guy.
Well, the self-help industry, sadly, over the last few years, has become more about help and less about self. I turned that around. I remind folks that their life is exactly the way they want it to be. Excuse me, I've got a little bit of a cough here today.
That's okay.
Their life is exactly the way they want it to be. If your life sucks, it's because you suck. If you're broke, it's because you want to be broke. I wrote a book called You're Broke Because You Want to Be.
That's right.
I wrote a book called Your Kids Are Your Own Fault. So everything that's going on in your life is there because that's how you want it to be. And people who want to argue with me about that, I remind them, if you didn't want it to be that way, it would be different. You would be taking the steps to make it look different. So you must be willing to live the life that you're living. Otherwise, you would be doing everything in your power 24 hours a day to make your life different. And because you're not doing that, you are accepting the life that you have. When you refuse to accept the life that you're living, when you refuse to accept the stupidity of your kids and being abused by other people and being bullied and to refuse to be broke, you will do everything in your power to make sure that is not the case for you. And if you're not doing that, you must like it. And when you tell people that, it makes them mad. I'm okay with making them mad. And you hold that mirror up to them and say, this is up to you, it's a rude awakening for folks.
Yeah, big time rude awakening. No, I have a lot of admiration for that. You're a straight-up guy. I mean, you're probably the most straight-up guy I think that I've ever had a conversation with in regards to this. You tell it like it is, and you break down all the barriers, and you break down the masks, and you break down, you break it right down to the cause of the effect, and that's the most painful part for people is to look in that mirror, and you're forcing them to face their biggest demon, and that's themselves.
Well, I don't really have to tell people they're stupid.
That's right.
All I have to do is show them their results. And if you're getting, it's the old Forrest Gump thing, stupid is as stupid does. If you are doing stupid things, you will create stupid results in your life. Now, no one else but you did those things. And when I work backwards and say, these are your results, where did those results come from? They came as a result of these things happening. Who did these things? And they go, well, I did. Well, there you go. Yeah. When you work backwards and prove to people that they make stupid decisions and that those stupid decisions are what caused all the pain in their lives, I base everything that I do on the oldest joke in the world. Guy goes into the doctor and he said, hey, doctor, it hurts when I do this. And the doctor says, well, then don't do that. And that's sort of my approach. Figure out what's causing the pain in your life and don't do it anymore.
Right. Yeah, it's as simple as that. It's as straightforward as that. Absolutely. Well, let me take you into another arena right now. One of the things I was thinking about is the future of the next generation, and I think about that because I have young kids too, and I've done well in the industry that I'm in, and I'm doing everything to the best of my ability, what I believe to be the best of my ability with my kids, in influencing them in different directions. Here we are in 2014, and, society's changed since the 70s and the 80s, and, it used to be son, daughter, go to school, get a great education, and be a part of a codependent system, and somebody's going to take care of you for the rest of your life, and you only have to put so much in and just follow their protocols, their methodologies, and their instructional, illustrations and diagrams for your life. I mean, when you go into a college or a university, or when you're working with the younger generation today, I mean, how do you feel? What are your deepest, most inner thoughts with these people, in the sense that, mom, dad, number one, Larry, mom and dad put a lot of pressure on them to go to school in some cases. I mean, let's call it what it is. Some of these kids are basically not living their divine birthright or their truth because of mom and dad and the conditioning. They have to go to school to be a doctor, lawyer, whatever. So when a renegade goes in, like yourself, what are they going to hear? Because, man, you're going to be like a thunderstorm in there, and some of these people had developed an interesting mindset, and then all of a sudden, I could literally, Larry, honestly, see some of these kids being in tears because you rip it right down. You rip the curtains. You rip the veil apart. You shatter it, man, the way you talked. And some of these kids are probably saying, oh, my God, this guy is saying everything I wanted to say to my mom and dad, but they just couldn't do it. I mean,
actually, that's really not how it works out. First of all, I don't speak to a lot of the millennials because millennials would never pay me to say what I have to say to them. I have delivered some commencement addresses that are, frankly, not very popular because I say, look, get a job, make some money, quit following your bliss, stop worrying about being passionate, and start figuring out how you're going to pay off that $27,000 in student loan debt that you racked up while you were in college. That's learning to have a commitment to your commitments. I tell them to develop a strong work ethic, to be the guy that employers can count on. Whether you like your boss or not, respect your boss because they're the boss. And we've lost respect and that work ethic and having a commitment to our commitments. And so when I remind them of that, I'll guarantee you that's very contradictory to what they are hearing from society. A study came out today that said 60% of millennials would rather take a job at $40,000 that they enjoyed than a job at $100,000 that they might someday find boring. Well, now that's okay to follow your bliss at some point in your life, but when you're a millennial and you've got all that student loan debt, I would take the $100,000 job, live like I had the $40,000 job, pay off all my student loan debt the very first year, and then have the freedom to go do what I loved. But see, that's a very practical approach. So when I take this strong stance about millennials and about kids, it's not always received very well by kids because they think that degree in basket weaving is really going to, or puppetry. You can get a college degree in puppetry. Now, where's the practical application of that? I think we need more welders and plumbers than we do people with a master's degree in puppetry. So they don't always love what I have to say. And parents, they're embarrassed by what I have to say because they realize, again, I wrote a book called Your Kids Are Your Own Fault. They realize that this 30-year-old, you realize that in the United States at least, I'm sure it's just about the same in Canada, a study again released this week, 1/3 of 30-year-olds live with their mother and father. If you are a 30-year-old living with mom and dad were lousy parents, and they're still being lousy parents because they didn't equip those kids with the skills it would take to survive and thrive in the real world. And then they enabled their children saying, oh, come on back, you can live in your bedroom. And they've compromised their own retirement, and they have compromised their future and their current happiness to take care of kids because they didn't teach them what it took to do well in the world in the beginning. So my approach is very much a slap in the face to the fact I think we're in trouble when it comes to parenting. I think the cause of almost all the problems we have in society right now are the result of lousy parenting.
Parenting, yes. No, I totally agree with that statement. I totally agree with that statement, beyond question, beyond doubt. Talk to me about free enterprise for young people today. I mean, is that something you encourage, free enterprise? Is that something that you think should be
I very much believe in capitalism. I very much believe in that you, first of all, though, before you go off and start your own job, that you should probably take a job. And you need to understand what it's like to work for someone and serve a customer well. So if at some point you decide to start your own business, you will understand what that's really about. I do not believe, I got an argument this week in social media where a person said every person should go out and start their own business. No, that's not true. I think very few people are equipped to start and run their own business. I think we have a lot of people going into business thinking they're equipped, but they've never done any study. What does it take to be successful? Have you ever read a book on budgeting or profit and loss or how to serve customers well? Or you just have a passion to start your own business, but you've never done the research? I think people should spend some time in the workplace, understanding how business works, understanding what it's like to have customers and employees by being a good employee, and then figure out whether they really would like to go into the free enterprise entrepreneurial area and start their own company. And before they do that, I would encourage them all, do some study, read, talk to people who are in business, the business you want to go into. Talk to them about what they need to watch out for, the pitfalls of being in business. We have way too many people going into business who are unprepared, and then they find out in the first year they didn't have any of the skills, they didn't have that perseverance, that stick-to-itiveness, and then they go out of business and they've lost their life savings because they threw it all into the business. So preparation and education is definitely a big part of it that most people skip.
What about the mindset in the sense that when you are brought up in a corporate background, or you do go to work for 10, 15 years working for a company, and then you want to make that shift? There's a lot of temptation out there. People are looking for ways to subsidize their income, so they'll go on the internet and they'll look for various different methodologies to create more income coming into their house. What about the mindset shift? Because something that I always thought about was, a lot of people, Larry, they get involved in multi-level marketing or direct selling on the internet, or whatever, things that don't cost a lot of money to get involved in, a $500 investment to get involved in a health and nutritional company, whatever it may be. But they say the statistics are like 3% make the money, 97% don't make any money, even when they come in here and they get caught up in the addiction. But what about that mindset shift? Because what we're doing is we're taking a person that from the time they were a child, this is just my theory, the time they were a child all the way through infancy, through adolescence, and then through teenage years, they've been taught to be order takers. You know what I mean? They've been brought up in that kind of codependent, be in before the streetlights get on. No, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. Here's your curriculum. Here's your outline in your 9-to-5 job. And then trying to make that mental transition from, that codependent, authoritative, safe, secure environment to all of a sudden you have to become innovative, creative, think for yourself, take on the accountability and the responsibility of yourself and your actions. I mean, do you see that as being a big adjustment?
I think it will be a big adjustment. I think that we could solve that. Again, it goes back to what I've been talking about parenting. If parents taught children how to be creative and how to sell and how to think outside the box, even though I hate that term, if parents taught that, they would much better prepare their kids for long-term success in this world. I think MLM is a great business for some people. But I do think you're right. They get caught up in the addiction. That's why a lot of people don't win at MLM. And the problem I see with people who go into MLM, and this is certainly a personal opinion, but I feel very strongly about this, is they do it as a way to bring in additional income. They compromise their relationship with their current employer. I have had so many people that I know well who worked for me in the past, and then they got into some MLM program, and they stopped working for me. They drew my salary. They were willing to take the money, but they put so much more interest into their MLM business that they sort of bit the hand that was feeding them. And so again, that comes back to integrity. If you have a job, you give your employer everything you've got. And then if you want to go earn some more money on the side through MLM, I'm all for that. But you don't take away from the current employer that you already have. And I think, again, that just comes down to an issue of integrity. And then I think it's only responsible to understand when you go into MLM exactly the statistics that you talked about. About 3% really do well. And so many people, you see, we prepare people for success in society. And we dangle that carrot of success out there. But we never do a very good job at preparing people for failure. And you will fail much more than you will ever succeed. And you need to learn how to fail. And you need to fail fast. You need to fail often. And you need to fail regularly. Because if you're not doing those things, then you have become complacent. And you're not stretching yourself. And you're not working very hard. So I do think that we should prepare for the ups. But we should also prepare people for the downs, the stumbling blocks, the detours that you will have to take on your way to success. And that's why most people abandon MLM. That's why most people abandon every entrepreneurial thing they would ever go after, because they're into it a few weeks, maybe a few months, and suddenly it's hard. And because it's hard, they weren't prepared for that, and they quit.
Yeah, that's record numbers actually quit. But come back. A lot of them actually find a way to come back. It's like an addiction to crack or something, you know. You had a really bad trip and then all of a sudden you got to come back, you know what I mean? So really, that's what I've seen in my 36 years playing in this industry. You know, just thinking about Larry Winget, have you ever been involved in anything like MLM or direct selling? Have you ever taken on any of those enterprises outside of being a great speaker and you're a sharp businessman and you're, you know, in your own projects and whatnot? Have you ever flown out to a company, checked things out where they literally wined and dined you and said, Larry, we need you to be our front guy and, you know, you're going to take us to the promised land? Have you ever had any of that stuff happen with you?
Yeah, I've been approached many times by different companies to be that person. The problem with me is when you give your allegiance to one, you compromise your ability to work for others. So in my industry, it's like when I do a television commercial. When I was shooting television commercials for Hyundai, national television commercials, it means I couldn't work for any other car companies pretty much forever. So for me to say yes to one MLM group would mean that none of the others would ever hire me or buy my stuff or use me. So I was always thinking more about the business that I am the best at. And again, I think that if we find something that truly speaks to who we are and gives us the freedom to be authentic, and usually when you do that, especially in my case, and it pays very, very well and gives you the lifestyle that you enjoy, then you stay dedicated to that and you don't water it down.
Yeah, the reason why I bring that up because you know, when I look at you on your website, I see your books. You're a very disruptive person, and I say that positively. I don't mean that in a negative sense. I mean, and I understand you're cool with that. But the thing is, you know, you would probably be a really great company owner, you know, creating a whole MLM environment. Because you know what, Larry, I really believe there's a very large segment out there in the industry that I'm a part of, network marketing and direct selling, and people love guys like you. I mean, sure, you're right. You're going to have rabid people that are, you know, going to be shooting arrows at you and stuff like that. But, you know, sometimes these industries need the rude awakening. And, you know, in our industry, I'll be honest with you, you have great speakers like Bob Proctor, you have Brian Tracy, you have Anthony Robbins, you have Zig Ziglar, God bless his, you know, soul and stuff. You got a lot of these, you know, fundamental speakers that have been out there for years and la-di-da. You know, I personally outgrew all that stuff a long time ago. I just refuse to listen to that stuff today. But, you know, the industry, honestly, there's something for you to think about. And, you know, obviously you have your own opinions. But, man, if you came into the industry like a thunderstorm, I think you'd leave a major impact in this industry. Even from a financial point of view, I think you'd do really well. But if you had a book, tape, audio series, live Google Hangouts with Larry Winget, and people paid a monthly subscription just to get tapped into what it is you're doing for guidance and direction, and because there's a lot of lost people out here, brother. There's a lot of lost people out here that would really love to hear what you have to say, because they've got this internal spiritual warfare going on inside them because a lot of people feel what you feel, what you want to say, but they're not at that level. They're not vibrating at the level you're at, where you just don't give a damn, period, and don't take that the wrong way. But there are people out there that just because of their surroundings, they're around family members, a husband, a wife, a spouse, people put them down, don't support their dreams, don't support their, whatever. I don't think everyone's going to pick up and do what you did, just say, to hell with everything. I'm going out to Arizona. I'm going to sit in a motel and drink myself silly and have some great cigars and, and watch some great TV and have a breakthrough watching television. I don't think everyone has the guts to do that.
Well, I didn't drink myself silly or just smoke cigars. They went out there to contemplate who I was.
Well, I understand that, too, but you know what I'm saying. I'm just kind of running with it here. But
I do have a monthly subscription service where people can go in and have an interactive virtual training program from me. I've got those things. But for me to go in to one market and abandon all the others, it doesn't make sense for me. At this point in my life, I am at a point in my life where I don't want to work as hard as I used to. I've made a lot of money. I traveled 250 days a year for 20 years. I'm into enjoying who I am right now and looking for passive income and not active income, passive income.
Right.
That's why I've created the virtual training, the monthly subscription service. That's why I write the books. That's why I offer everything that I do online because, frankly, I don't want to go on the road as much and stand in front of groups. I'd be happy, though, for any groups that wanted to pay me to come and stand in front of them. I would be happy to consider those engagements.
What about selling? What about selling your tools and letting companies to kind of obviously brand you, but utilizing your books, your videos, like creating a video library, like what I'm doing at the legendsnetwork.com, for example. I used to be the issue from 2001 to 2006. I was the issue. It was all about me, and then I realized that there's no place for me in that anymore. So in the industry that I'm in, we've created the legendsnetwork.com, and what that is, it's bringing together many of the most creative, brilliant minds out there, yourself included, to allow the world to see these different personalities, who they are, what they're all about, their methodologies, their protocols, procedures to get to where, to go from the basement to the penthouse, so to speak. We want the world to see it from a multitude of perspectives instead of just shave your head and follow one person now. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like it used to be. I think the evolutionary process is happening where I think for one person, this is just me, Larry, speaking, you don't have to agree with it, but I think to follow one person today in their dogma is I think it's dangerous.
I do too, and I think it's short-sighted. That's how you end up with Jonestown sort of things and the Branch Davidians and all that. I totally agree with that. And I think that it's like if you only watch Fox News or if you only watch MSNBC, you're going to get only one point of view. I think people need to expose themselves. First of all, be intelligent enough to interpret what is being said, but they need to be exposed to lots of different values and approaches and tactics and mindsets and philosophies, and then figure out what works best for them. What I tell people all the time is I don't expect anybody to think like I think. All I want to do is challenge you to think on your own. And that's really my goal every day, to be so provocative and to say things that are so provocative that you sit back and say, do I believe that? I wonder if I do. And if I do, why? And if I disagree, why do I disagree? So if I have been the impetus to get people to think on their own, then I have been successful. So I think you're right in that we should expose ourselves to lots of different sources of education.
Yeah, and then just kind of, to study these great people like yourself and others out there and develop your own style. It's kind of like martial arts. Bruce Lee didn't study one martial art. He studied a multitude of martial arts before he created his own, and that's what I want to do at the Legends Network, because I've just been seeing so many people following certain doctrines that, and one of the things I always used to tell people, Larry, is I used to say, there's a lot of false teachers out there in the industry. And I think you really edified that today, even though you might not have picked up on that. You might have. I don't know. I can't speak for you. But, just by what you said, you came out, you broke through. You felt you were not being yourself. You thought you were not being authentic and genuine on stage. And then you had this breakthrough, and you know of a lot of speakers themselves that know that they're bullshitting the masses for money and political correctness.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, and I'm just being straight up. So that's the world that I live in, because I recognize that every day, and sometimes I feel like a freak of nature myself personally, because I feel like I'm this 50-year-old gentleman that's on the planet now. I can't believe I'm 50, by the way. I feel like I'm 18 still. But anyhow, we do reach that point sometimes where we're halfway through the century, and I just feel like sometimes my brain is just like way out there in esoteric land. Like, can't these people see it? Can't they see these illusions out there? Can't they see the facade? I mean, can't they see they're being milked?
So let me just tell you the answer to that. No, they can't. And you can drive yourself nuts trying to figure it out or trying to bang your head against the wall saying, can't they see it? And I tell you, you will be much happier if you'll just say, no, they can't. So just keep doing what you do. And some will get it, some won't. And you can't really bother yourself concerning yourself with the ones who won't.
Yeah, no, but it's frustrating, but it's so true. And I see that as I'm sitting here looking at your books. Every one of the titles on your books, by the way, New York #1 best-selling author and Wall Street Journal best-selling author. I mean, that's absolutely amazing. And when did the books kick in for you, man? I mean, you started going on a speaking trip, and what inspired you to start writing books? Was it the money that inspired you? Because I know there's a lot of money behind becoming a self-published author. Was it the money, or really did you really want to piss some more people off and stick it in their face? What was the motivating factor behind the books? I mean,
well, I had self-published in my first 10, 12 years in the speaking business. I had self-published 25 books, and I was selling 100,000 copies back of the room at my speaking engagements. And then somebody approached me and said, Larry, you ought to sell a book to a publisher. And I said, now, why would I want to do that? You know, I'm making so much money back of the room with my self-published books. Why would I care about that? And they appealed to my ego, and they said, Larry, if you sell a book to a publisher, they'll put it in bookstores. And I went, well, I've written 25 books, and while I'm making a lot of money in self-publishing, and it's easy and fast for me, it appealed to my ego to walk in a bookstore and there would be my book. So I said, all right, I'll sell one. And I sold Shut Up, Stop Whining, Get a Life. It went to #1 on the bestseller list the first week that it was out. And that's when William Morris' agent called me and said, who are you? And I said, in your world, I am not much of a big deal. But in my world, I'm a big deal. And he said, he said, very few people can come into the publishing industry truly as an unknown and go to #1 on the bestseller list. And I said, well, I'm just an unknown in your industry. I got a big following. And so we talked, and then I signed with William Morris as my agent, and I wrote 5 more New York Times, Wall Street Journal bestsellers. So it's a result. My books are such a contrarian view, and I know how to – I write good books. I write great titles. My titles are great. They get people's attention. They make them think. They touch an emotion. And when you touch people's emotion – see, people don't want to be educated. They want to be connected with. And my books make a connection with people.
Right.
And so that's the popularity that came as a result of having great titles, good marketing behind it, a good presence in the industry that I can go out and pretty much just call television stations and say, I'd sure like to be on to talk about my book, and they'll say, well, come right on. And you get all those things working for you, and then you can crank out some bestsellers. But the books are definitely a way for me to build an audience and build a following. They've been translated into over 20 languages all over the world, so.
Wow, man, way to go. Is there something else in store for you, Larry? What's the future hold for Larry Winget, man? Where are you at now in life? What's the future hold? You got another book coming out? You going to get back in TV and do your own thing?
I just signed a contract for another television show. We'll see if they get it sold. So that could be on the horizon here pretty soon, a new TV show. And there's always a book in the works. So I'll have a new book out probably another year. But people need to keep tuning in and figure out when that new show is going to happen, if it happens. I'm going to continue doing what I do, just be more selective who I do it for. So I'm a happy guy right now as we started this whole thing off. It's good to be Larry Winget, and it truly is good to be Larry Winget.
Well, it was very kind of you to offer your time to even do this. I mean, I can't even begin to thank you enough for coming forward and doing this, and I really appreciate that. And, I just really can't thank you enough. It's been an absolutely big thrill for me. Do you have any words of wisdom just in closing? Do you have some final thoughts that you'd like to share with people? Just is there anything you just want to get off your chest for the sake of getting off your chest? Because the audience that's going to be listening to this, we're all over the world now with the Legends Network. It's spreading like wildfire into China, Japan, Singapore. we're in Russia, we're in Israel, believe it or not, Larry. We're in Belgium, we're in Germany now, we're Scotland, England, Ireland. We just picked up, probably in the last 2 weeks, we picked up about 47 countries that are now plugging into our audio library in the back office. I was just kind of wondering if you had any, final thoughts or,
Sure.
just words of wisdom.
Well, all those countries that you named, most of those countries you'd be able to buy my books. So because
Excellent.
they've been translated in so many languages and are available in so many countries. Yeah, I typically end, the most popular question I get is, what does it take to be successful? Everybody wants to know what it takes to be successful, regardless of where they're coming from. And it really comes down to, in my opinion, three things. 3 sheets of paper, actually. So if everybody got out 3 sheets of paper and a pen, and on the first sheet of paper, write down where you are. And I mean in every area of your life. How much money you're making, where you are financially, in your relationships, in your career. Write down where you are in your business, all the way across the board. Where am I right now? On the second sheet of paper, write down a corresponding list of where you would like for it to be. So on sheet 1, this is where I am. Sheet 2, this is the way I would like for it to be. And then on the third sheet of paper, I want people to write what they're going to give up to get from where they are to where they want to be. We have way too many people talking about how you get success. You don't get success. You give up what's keeping you from being successful. You don't get skinny. You give up what's making you fat. You don't get rich. You give up what's making you broke. You don't get happy. You give up what's making you unhappy. And I think I'm about the only guy who talks about success comes from sacrifice. And yet we live in a society that doesn't like to talk about sacrifice. We have idiot motivational speakers out there who are telling folks, you can have it all. I have heard them say it. Some of the names that you mentioned earlier talk about you can have it all. And folks, you can't. You have to choose. It's about getting your priorities right and be willing to give up a lot of stuff, sacrifice, in order to get what you really want. You've got to learn what to say no to. You've got to be willing to let go of how you think, how you believe, how you act, when you get up in the morning, when you go to bed at night, and what you do all day in between. If you're not willing to let go of all that stuff, you're going to continue to live the life that you have right this minute.
Amen, brother. You put it perfectly. Nobody can even begin to debate that has half an intelligent brain. Yeah, honestly, I mean, you can't even begin to debate that. You have to release. You have to let go and let go of the old self or the old belief systems or whatever. You just can't. And, it's evident just in people that win lotteries. You see these people, Larry, they go out and they win $20 million in lottery ticket. With the lottery ticket, what happens to them 3-4 years later? They're done.
Hey, listen, I saw a report on a guy that won $1 million in the lottery, and he went out the next day and bought $1 million worth of lottery tickets.
Figure that out, huh?
So 2 days later, he's broke again.
The power of positive thinking, hey?
There you go.
Wow, man. Listen. This has been a real treat for me. I had no idea what to expect. I wasn't sure how this was all going to go. I knew something magical was going to happen here. It's been an honor and a treat for me to be able to speak to you personally. I really do appreciate that, brother. I love you, man. I just got to tell you, I'm on your side, and yeah, and I really mean that to be true. I'm not making you feel good or nothing. I don't come in contact with people like you too often in my journey through life, and that's why I have an admiration for what you brought to the table today. I just wish more people would step up and really tell their truth as to how they really feel, instead of trying to mask it all the time. And I think you are going to be a catalyst in helping people feel comfortable in doing that. So, Mr. Larry Winget, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate that on behalf of the LegendsNetwork.com. You're a gem, brother, and I appreciate this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.